Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Oh, freedom.
What is your definition of freedom?
Freedom is the idea and the action of being able to do what you want when you want without a entity pushing you into a certain type of living.
And being able to express yourself in the world without need for apology.
For me, having more options, having more avenues would be a definition of freedom. Whether or not you can do something or you cannot. So for example, I'm sitting in a restaurant, I can eat my food, I get treated like a customer. I can also grab a chair and throw it through a window. I get treated as a vandal, and therefore I must bear the consequences of them. Or I can call the boss and I can say, hey, I'm going to take a vacation. I have that freedom to do so. Or being able to say, forget this, I'm quitting. That is a type of freedom. That is going to be my best definition of freedom.
E sottrarsi alle aspettative degli altri.
Ability to observe something and decide to either agree or disagree with it. The ability to decide if I align morally, emotionally, or spiritually with something and allow it, or to take action and intervene. Invest in relationships with people how I choose to, but how I want to politically. I just treat my body in whatever manner I decide is fit. This freedom in my own context can be defined that way, but across the board, you can probably see examples that either align with that or may seem even more insignificant than that.
Freedom, it's the power to create your own existence in this world.
Why is freedom important in this society?
Yo creo que esa es una utopía. Yo creo que eso no existe en realidad.
So I believe that without freedom, you subdue creativity and expression.
Freedom is important in this society so that everyone feels like they are equal, they have a voice, they are listened to, and that we're all equal.
Wolność jest tam, gdzie umiera prawo.
Are you talking about this nation, the society, and another nation?
In this nation.
All right. Well, freedom can be important in our society here in the United States. It can be important, however, it is a matter of how. So when it comes to freedom, importance of freedom in America, it really does depend on what you are seeking to accomplish. Some of the examples are, you go to the airport, you wish to travel. You are more than free to do so. However, you have to pay a certain amount. You cannot just travel for free. Therefore, there is a barrier of cost. then there's a barrier of security where you have to go through a security checkpoint. You have to take off your shoes, you have to take off your belts, and you get detected because some members of our society have decided to misbehave. And therefore, we now have to appeal to some protocols to be able to do so safely. So safety, security, and freedom are generally at both ends.
We are constantly reminded that although we live in a society where we have the right to free speech, it's not a given. And it's not a given in this country, and it's not a given around the world.
For number 3, how do you think your perspective of freedom has changed from the life you have led?
So then that's either good or bad. Freedom allows growth within our society and more importantly within ourselves and each other. So if everyone tells you that getting a tattoo is a bad idea, and then sometimes that freedom to go get it anyway gives you the perspective you needed to learn that it wasn't what you thought it was. Freedom allows mistakes and in turn growth and progression. Aside from the ink being permanent, that example is pretty low impact. But you can still see examples in pretty much every look through history how freedom or a lack thereof has advanced, like the Roman Empire, or hindered, or I guess a civilization. So freedom to make your own decisions and kind of reap the benefits and consequences of those actions could be cited as the foundation and nature of human development, in my opinion.
Oh, cool.
There's more to it. So the oppression of some freedoms, though, can be a good thing. Otherwise known as laws. And I personally think that the inclination of mankind, more often than not, has been proven to be evil in nature. If freedom was entirely in check, people would have an easier time inflicting their own quote-unquote freedoms upon those who may not agree with it. A psychopath may want the freedom to torture and kill people because they're deranged, but we have, as a society, restricted the definition of freedom to exclude a person from acting their malicious behavior upon others. That said, we can pretty quickly find examples of how the original concept of limiting freedom for the greater good of humanity can be skewed into people taking too much power and actually violating what we perceive as someone's basic human rights, without driving down another rabbit hole. Basically, to answer your question, freedom is important because people are different and we need to be our diversified selves, collectively learning and improving from the past and having a room to grow in different directions in the future.
Okay, I didn't think of that. That's cool.
If you think about the word freedom, it really is an illusion in a lot of senses because it is freedom with an asterisk next to the word. It is almost freedom. It is sort of freedom. It is pretty close, but not really freedom. That's what we're talking about, and that's the world almost all of us live within.
True freedom, which means that people can think on their own, they have ideals of their own, they are not pushed into a certain type of group, into, as I've grown into an adult, seeing that freedom is being compartmentalized. There's women that are kind of put in a certain group that are not allowed to have the certain freedoms that men do, or certain groups like the transgender people. They're still human, and yet they are not always given the same rights, and certain ethnic groups or races, they're also separated from like the true society freedom, what you would consider a general freedom. It's been more compartmentalized.
Mm-hmm.
My view of freedom is not only limited by the where I lived is also limited by age. So when I was incredibly young, I was able to have a lot of freedom because the society I lived in was actually incredibly nice. Crime was virtually non-existent. I remember taking walks by myself when I was 5 years old to the market and bringing back fresh berries, bringing back fresh produce. Something that in current society in America is very, very hard to believe or hard to go through. But being able to do anything I wanted was really, really cool. I could pursue any dream I was told.
Is freedom an abstract concept or is it concrete?
Freedom is definitely both abstract and concrete. When I think of the abstract part, it is the ideal of the thought that, you can do anything and, but you really can't, because there are certain laws, and I understand those certain laws are for the good of the general public. So the concrete of it is that our military in the U.S. has fought very hard and very long to support and keep our freedoms available to all and support our country for, basically protecting us from other types of groups in the world that do not offer the same sorts of freedoms. They're told what to do, when to do it, what they can do, what they can't do, and it doesn't allow for the true freedom of individuals and communities.
I feel like kind of across the board, people, as they gain kind of context and experience in their lives, their perception of freedom changes, and it may not be what they still believe is freedom or not. It's just they may think, they may be able to observe that what they have currently is more free than was originally believed by them. So, for me, like when I was growing up, arguing with my parents because I wanted to go out late and see my girlfriend or something, I thought my freedom was being infringed upon when they were like, nah, you gotta stay home. But then I joined the military and went overseas and witnessed what a lack of freedom really is. And you can see it anywhere from the government to a bad domestic relationship or religion or even a clique at school or work. So my ideology of freedom changed due to exposure to the world, more so to show me how freedom can really be limited, and how much freedom I truly still have. I don't think I traveled the world and was like, oh wow, I'm not as free as these other people here, because quite frankly, our experience growing up, at least my experience growing up in America, has been that of just pretty true, unadulterated freedom.
In my opinion, it can be both. It certainly can be an abstract concept, because even a person in chains can be free in their mind and be able to think about various things. We can take a look at some of the greatest writers, for example, O. Henry, who wrote many books from his jail cell. In the concrete form, they were still able to be free with their minds, but at the same time, it can also be very much so concrete, where people can be trapped in their own minds. You don't need walls to keep a human being at bay. You can keep them in a mental cage, which is more abstract. So it can be both at the same time.
I agree.